guys, and welcome back to another video on my channel. I know that it has been a little bit since I posted my last video. I kind of got caught up. It was my birthday and then I just was really busy and a lot has been going on. I didn't really have a lot of time to sit down and film a video. However, I plan on uploading this video a little while ago, and it was just one that I kind of put together and was ready to upload on the week of my birthday. However, because of some certain things that happened, I wasn't able to do so. But today I am back, and I think that this video might be on the shorter side. However, sometimes I think that and then the video ends up being a decent amount of time, and sometimes I think that it's going to be a long video and then I upload it and it ends up being extremely short. But anyways, with that all being said, let's get right into today's video. This all started on September 16th, 1994 at the Ariel School in Zimbabwe. This was a private school that was located just outside Rua, and this particular event took place around 10 a.m. on that day when the children at that school were let out for their first recess break of the day. Now, at this particular time, there was really only one adult around the area. All of the other teachers had gone into the staff room for a teacher meeting, and there was one adult who was kind of on the playground, but she had another job, so she wasn't really paying too much attention to the children. She was kind of just working on the job that she had been assigned to do, but she was also kind of keeping an eye out, which would never fly nowadays, but back then that was something I guess that the school did quite often whenever the teachers needed to have a meeting. Now let's talk about the layout of the school's playground for a minute. So there was like the normal playground at the front where the kids were allowed to play. This whole property was owned by the school, obviously, but there was like an area where the children were allowed to play, and then there was a little bit of extra space at the back of the field that was kind of an area that was owned by the school, but it wasn't taken care of. It was really overgrown. A couple of the students who went to that school said that there was a lot of like poisonous plants and bugs in that area, and they weren't really allowed to go back there. Some of the children did go back there every now and then, but it wasn't a place that they were really allowed to go. It was off limits because it was not maintained by the school. There was no upkeep in that specific area. It was said that on this particular day, it was absolutely scorching outside. It was so hot, and the children were so excited to get out of the school and play and spend their time on their break. But again, the sun was beaming down and they were all so hot. At this time, there was about 60 to 62 children in the playground, all aged 5 to 12. And once they got outside, that is when all 60 of these children noticed these silver ball-like objects hovering in the sky. This caught all of the children's attention as it was unlike anything any of them had ever seen before. The children described these balls as like flashing red in light and then disappearing and then reappearing in different parts of the sky. According to the children who were witnessing these balls move all over the sky, they said that they reappeared and disappeared 3 more times before one of the silver objects started to slowly move closer and closer to the school until it had landed in a cluster of gumball trees about 300 feet away from where the children were playing in that back playground that was overgrown, that was off limits to the children. Something to mention before we move on that I should clarify is that yes, this part of the playground was off limits to the children. They weren't allowed to go back there on school times, and honestly they probably shouldn't go back there when it wasn't school times either because of the bugs and the plants and the overgrown area. But this area was not fenced off or anything like that, so the children did have full access to that playground. They just usually would know better than to go back there, and in that area is again where this silver ship had landed. After watching those 3 silver ships fly around the sky, this had really sprung the curiosity of all of the children in the playground because it was something so strange and interesting to them. So after seeing this ship land in an area that they could fully get to, some of the more curious children did wander over to where the ship had landed. For those children who were more curious enough to investigate the situation, they walked over to the area, and to their horror, a small black humanoid figure that was about 3 feet tall, wearing a shiny, tight fitted suit, saying that the creature had a very scrawny neck, long black hair, huge eyes, and the kids described it as looking similar to a rugby ball with very thin arms and legs. Shortly after seeing this first strange being, a second one emerged from the ship and began approaching the children.
What did you see?
There was some like ship landed on the ground.
Why do you say ship? Did it have a shape?
Yes.
Like what?
It had a long top and it was flat at that around the sides.
Or just round the side?
Just so like a platform coming around the side.
Did you see anything else?
Yes, we saw a black man running around.
A little man or what?
From where we looked, he was about this small, but we were quite way away. So he was about our size.
After these creatures emerged from the ship, several of the younger children just became overstricken with fear. They were absolutely terrified, and they fled the scene, running back towards the school in terror. The remaining children all recalled at this point that it was if the first being that got off the ship hadn't noticed the children at all. And immediately after this being did notice the children, he then went back into the ship and then returned pretty quickly after that and kind of just watched the children for a moment. The children who had fled back to the school in terror were running around, freaking out, looking for an adult to let them know what was going on. But again, all of the teachers at this time were in that meeting, and there was only one teacher, or woman I guess. She wasn't really a teacher, she was a parent of one of the students that had attended the school, and she was the only adult that was available to the children at that time. The kids finally tracked down the only adult that was available to them at that time, which again was a parent volunteer, and she was at this time working tuck shop. Now for those of you who may not know, tuck shop is kind of like this little stand thing where they sell candies and sweets and things along those lines to teach children how to manage their money, or sometimes this money goes into the school, kind of things like that. The parents will give their kids a little bit of money and the kids can spend it on things in tuck shop. So this woman was working tuck shop when all of the younger children ran to her and tried to explain to her what they had witnessed in the school field and what was going on with the older children who had remained outside now. But this woman just really brushed this off. She thought that the children were trying to get her to leave her post so that they could load up on candy and things that she was selling at tuck shop without having to give her the money. So she just thought this was some big fabricated lie. Later on, when all of this came to light, the school staff would come and confirm that the children were basically on the playground completely by themselves that day without being attended at all. And many of the teachers who were in the staff room did say that they recalled hearing children yelling and screaming while they were on their recess. However, kids yell and scream all the time, and the teachers who were working at that school, who again were not watching the children, just thought that this was kids being kids and that they were running around yelling and screaming, burning off steam in the playground while they took their break. Many of the children who were on the playground still at that time were watching the beings, and they continued to watch the beings because they had struck their curiosity. And all of these children would later say, when interviewed, that the beings then communicated with them through their eyes. And I'm going to assume that that means telepathically, because obviously a young child is not going to know what telepathically means. But anyways, all of these kids said that after the beings started to communicate with them, what they were trying to communicate was that we were doing harm to our planet, and that if we didn't start taking better care of our home, something very bad was going to happen. After the beings expressed this to the children, they then get back onto their silver ball-like ship, and it left similarly to how it landed, up through the gum trees. And this entire encounter only lasted about 15 minutes.
I saw the little black men. They had longish hair, and it was all black, and they had big black eyes. That's all I saw. I saw a glimpse. They kind of turned around and stared, and then went back into a kind of like ship. There was like sort of one big one with quite a few little ones, all scattered around.
When you say you had big eyes, show me with your hands the size compared to
They
yours.
were oval, kind of like that.
Oval?
Yes.
I see. And could you see anything else on the face?
No, I couldn't. All as I could see was his hair, and when he turned around, and then he...
Were you afraid?
Yes, I was.
Once recess was over, the children then went back into the school, with all of them sharing what they had witnessed with the teachers. However, the teachers at this time just dismissed this as the kids making up some kind of story, and they didn't think that there was really any truth to it. But something to note here is that similar to other alien encounters and things along those lines, several of the children felt extremely ill after having this encounter. A few of the girls would recount that they had extremely bad headaches, and all of the children were visibly frightened. Once school had ended, pretty much all of the children went home and shared this exact same story with their parents. And obviously this struck a chord with the parents, especially when all of the children were telling the exact same story. And news of what the children had claimed to have witnessed spread very, very quickly after that. Angry parents began phoning the school left, right, and center, asking why their kids were unattended in the playground, why they were so frightened, and what exactly it was that they had seen on the playground that day that had left them so frightened. However, the school staff pretty much had absolutely no answers for these angry parents, and once the word started to spread, that is when the story reached Cynthia Hides, who is a UFO researcher and a journalist. As soon as Cynthia had heard about this story, she contacted the school and she was able to go there, and she talked to several of the children and she asked them to draw pictures of what it was that they had seen. And the strange thing about this is obviously none of the children were artists. They were all under the age of 12, but all of their drawings looked strikingly similar. Cynthia, the reporter, along with her son, investigated the area in which the alleged encounter had taken place, but nothing was found. There were no signs of radiation or anything like that discovered in the area, and because of it, this led many people to be skeptical of this children's story. But the head of the school would stand behind the kids' story, saying that many of the kids who attended the school didn't watch TV or anything like that, and he pretty much thought that most of these children would have absolutely no idea what an alien even was, let alone to be able to fabricate such a detailed story about these alien beings. He just didn't think that it was possible, and he did believe that his students were telling the truth.
What is your name?
Charity Sender.
What did you see?
I saw something silver on the ground amongst the trees, and a person in black, and that's all I saw.
You saw a person alongside the silver thing.
Yes.
What did the silver thing look like?
It looked like a saucer, but the shape wasn't really round.
Have you heard about UFOs before this?
No.
You didn't know anything about it, so it was something quite new to you.
Yes.
Were you afraid?
Yes.
What did you do? Did you run to fetch the teachers, or you just stayed with the other children?
I stayed with the other children.
Okay.
This story had ended up reaching a child psychologist, and he thought that this would be something that he wanted to help with. So he came to the school and he spoke to 12 of the 60 children who had this encounter, and he ended up saying that he fully believed the children's story as well, because he said that every single one of these children, all 12 of them, had the exact same story right down to the nitty-gritty, and that is not something that children would usually have, especially not if they were telling a lie. They would usually throw something in here or there, but all of their stories were pretty much the exact same. This is kind of sad, but many of the children, specifically the older ones who had this encounter, would say that they were really frightened that nobody would believe them when they came forward with their story. One of the girls in particular told the psychiatrist that she swore on the Holy Bible and every single hair on her head that the story that she was telling him was 100% true. And for a child to feel like nobody is going to believe them or something like that is just so sad. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this specific event took place on September 16th, but something that I thought was worth a mention is that on September 14th, people all across South Africa would come forward claiming that they saw strange lights and strange objects in the sky. Now obviously this was a couple of days earlier, but could these sightings be related to the aerial school encounter? It has been 27 years since this encounter has taken place, and all of the 60 children who had witnessed this encounter are now full-grown adults, and not one of these children, who are now adults, have ever come forward saying, you know, that this was a lie, or maybe they fabricated the incident, or anything like that. None of them have changed their story, and they all stick to saying what they had seen was 100% absolutely the truth. Because all of the witnesses to this encounter were young children, most people who come across this case just dismiss it as, you know, children being told something. Maybe one of the kids saw something on TV or heard something in a book or something like that, and then convinced all of the other children that this was happening when it actually wasn't, or that this was some kind of mass hysteria. I could see that maybe if it was one child who was much older than the other children telling all of the younger children that this was happening. But as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I'm aware, the age groups were all mixed. There was a bunch of older children, a bunch of younger children. It wasn't like it was one older child and a bunch of younger children. The ages were all mixed, and it again has been 27 years and nobody has come forward saying that this story wasn't true. I personally think, and I don't want to sound too gullible here, but I think that it is very likely that the children who attended the Ariel school in Zimbabwe in 1994 did in fact have an encounter with extraterrestrial beings. You guys are going to have to let me know what you think about this case down below. I'm sorry that this video was kind of shorter, but obviously there's a lot of articles and whatnot about it online if you wish to find out more about this case, but I just thought it was so interesting and I really wanted to share it with you guys because this was something that I just dove into and I could not get my mind off of. But guys, that's going to bring us to the end of today's video. Sorry if my microphone's kind of off. I have a new one, but it takes batteries and I don't have them yet. But next video, I will have them. You can hear the AC right now, but that'll all be sorted by the next video, hopefully. Anyways, if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.